Hey everyone, it is your host Damien here from Hybrid Heroes, and this is the HYROX Heroes podcast, where we talk everything that you need to know when it comes to getting ready for your next HYROX race. Excited to have you here, and let's get into the episode. All right, everybody, it is the first podcast for 2025, and I'm so excited to be talking about keeping your training simple, why it works, and by overcomplicating it, you might be leaving, performance behind, and you might be just making your whole HYROX journey harder than it needs to be. So this is going to be a jam-packed episode with a ton of value. And if you're someone who has a HYROX coming up this year, right, this is going to be an absolute must listen to podcast because it's going to give you a really good understanding of all the mistakes to avoid, so you can line up everything you need to in the right way when it comes to your training, time scheduling, just really getting good understanding of how to prepare for it so you can get the best result possible. So let's dive into this. This is going to be a really exciting episode. All right, so it's titled Why Simple Works When It Comes to HYROX. And this works for everybody. Now, when I say everybody, beginners, intermediate, advanced, it doesn't matter. And the true secret, and this is something that I learned early on in my career, and I think a lot of, definitely beginner type gym goers, athletes don't realize, is the most advanced athletes, right? They do the fundamentals very well. Their training, their scheduling is not overly complicated. Yes, they might do a lot of volume, but by nature, it's very simple. The true secret when it comes to anything is the execution. So one problem that I see that is really big is people overcomplicate things. They do too much, too varied, because they're a little bit unsure and unclear. And that's what we're going to really do in this episode here, is we're going to unpack it all so you can really get clear, understand. And if you are someone especially who's a little bit time poor, like you're a normal person, you've got a normal job, you got a family, you're in a relationship, and you can't train 8 sessions a week, right? Nor should you. So how do we make the most of the time you have available? And the reality is, even if you can only train 3 times a week, right? Let's just say, you can still make some really, really great progress if we just, do the right things in the right way. Let alone if you got 4 or 5 days still available to train. So we're going to get into it, guys. This is going to be an awesome episode. Okay. So when I just sort of mentioned it a little bit, one of the biggest problems, we're going to talk problems here, right? So people do too much and overcomplicate it, as I just sort of touched on. Because by nature, if we're looking at HYROX, right, hybrid training overall, there's a lot of modalities. There's a lot of things to do. Running, lifting, strength training, the specific movements, erg work, just you name it, right? It is such an encompassing, event and topic, and you got to be really good at a lot of things. You got to be fast, you got to have endurance, you got to be strong, you still got to be fast with your strength, but not too strong. It's an awesome event to train for, but again, there's a lot of things to work on. So with this as well, there's a lot of people that just are looking at all these different things, and they're trying to do it like all in the one type of session. So if they're doing HYROX type sessions, they're just putting so much into them and trying to get too much out of each session. But even the week sometimes is they're just trying to cram as much as they can into the week. Not only is this it can get confusing, it requires a lot of planning and a lot of to get it right, it takes a lot of brilliance, but it's just completely overcomplicating the training approach. Now, if someone is being given that kind of plan and they don't fully understand it, it can lead to confusion. It can lead to, not having enough belief in the system because it's too random. And it's true. And it will lead to burnout, which is another thing. So there's too much going on. And even to keep reprogramming that, it's so much you got to think about it all the time. It's not even a sustainable way, because how do you keep progressing that program that is overly complicated, right? So we want to keep things simple. And this is like a principle of life. My coaching, Hybrid Heroes, we are really built on principles, right? Methods are many, but principles are few. And, so the principle of simplicity. This applies to anything in life, to keep things simple takes, a genius. There is a famous quote there. I can't say it right, but simplicity is the key. And I think we can all agree on that. All right. Another problem that we see is lack of planning. All right, so many people train without a clear goal or plan. And this results in random and ineffective training sessions. It's one of the biggest. I reach out to a lot of people in the HYROX space, people training for HYROX, and we have our free group and we have resources and that. And one of the things I always hear all the time is people use the key word is winging it, right? Like everyone's sort of winging it somehow, because everyone's so individual as well. Like there's literally you might be weak at running, so obviously you're going to focus a lot more on running. But then you have a moment and you're like, I don't think I'm strong enough, and then you change the approach. You see a fun workout, so then you go and try that workout. And we kind of just, we sort of think by just, throwing ourselves at workouts and at work that we're going to make those improvements. And, compared to not training and not doing anything, absolutely. And for the majority of people, they will still get a result, right? But if we plan, if we think about how we can best do this, right? And we create a structure and all the pieces of the puzzle fit in correctly, right? This is where the magic happens. This is where, your training, your efforts can really pay off. And this is the thing. It's not like you just got to force your way through. It actually becomes really sort of easier to make progress, because you don't need to then absolutely put 95, 100% effort in every session. You just need to put quality work in, and that quality work will compound it and keep making those results. And then you realize it's like, holy shit, it's like I'm actually making better results, but I don't even feel like I'm training as hard. And that's the magic thing, because intensity comes at a point. It should just not be the way to approach everything. Okay. So lack of planning. So we got to create a roadmap, right? That's the thing. So without this plan, right, you are literally doing it the hard way. All right. What we also find is a big problem is when it comes to overcomplicating the process, not having a plan. What this can lead to as well is, when we don't have simple session details. So if we're trying to incorporate, let's say, a lot of running, but in HYROX workouts. So we're trying to do both at once, because we're like, well, it's HYROX. We've got to, compromise run, and we've got to do these things. But it's like we never actually get great at anything. So by keeping it simple, and this is what we do a lot in our programming, is yes, we have HYROX sessions where we have the compromise runs and all the transitions and all that stuff, but we also do simple and separate sessions for strength, for running, right? And then we also do HYROX. So it allows us to focus purely on running, because we don't just need to get HYROX fit for running. We need to get fitter at running. We need to improve our running, our mechanics, the way we run. So you need to also do specific sessions, which again, it doesn't overcomplicate it. Actually makes it really simple. But allows us to get great at these things, which then can carry over and transition into our hybrid or our HYROX type sessions. Same with strength. If we're doing all our strength training in high intensity interval type classes or sessions, we're not working on pure absolute strength. You're not going to get great. You're not going to get as strong as you can versus doing a specific strength session on its own, like having 2 minutes rest in between sets, as an example. So that's a problem that we see, is people are doing a lot of training, there's a lot of intensity, but they're not actually getting great at anything. They're getting okay at it, but not great. And again, overcomplicating the system. All right. Just like the first lap of HYROX, we see this in the first week of HYROX training. People are just going too fast, too hard, too soon, right? If you're training for HYROX and you literally have a 12-week program, right, which is on the shorter side, right? Like we have programs all the way from 12 months out. A good HYROX program really should be 6 months out, right? To build the base, to build the endurance, and then peak it into. That's ideal, right? But if you've only got if you are 6 months out, if you are 12 weeks out, right? That's still 3 months of training, 12 weeks. So if you're going so hard in the first week, why? Because you're motivated, because you're pumped up and you've got your new program. but that is not sustainable, right? For a lot of people. And we see it because a lot of times I coach people, and the biggest thing that I do, so kind of like 3 weeks out from the event, a lot of my efforts with a lot of people that I train for the first time, right? For the first time, is that I end up having to guide them through the burnout period, right? And a lot of people will sort of come to me as well when they're sort of in trouble, right? So I start working with people, and it's like, we should have, I wish I had worked with you 12 weeks ago, because I would have guided you through this initial phase. But when people are already starting to burn out and you're 3 weeks out from the event, it's kind of a hard thing to do, because you can't like just, slow down. And this thought of slowing down scares people, and that close to the event can cause havoc. So we really got to understand, all the way from the word go, is you got to make sure that, an analogy kind of here is like, it's like a train taking off, right? It's not a Tesla. Tesla's like 0 to 100 instantly. A train just gradually takes off, starts moving, and it picks up pace as it goes. That's how your training schedule should look like. Because if we do that, then the back end of our training program, as we're getting closer to the event, like we want to, that's when we're going at full speed and we're feeling good and everything's working. We don't want to be, like that Tesla, 0 to 100, boom, gone. But then towards the end of the program, the battery's draining. There's not much energy. This thing's going to stop in a second. That's a good analogy. I like this. So yeah, hopefully that really makes sense, right? And again, not only do we see the burnout, right, but this leads to, fatigue. This can lead to other health issues. And this is typically where we start to see, athletes get injured. So one thing, touch wood, that's been a huge thing that I've just been so proud of, is people that I work with, like, rarely, like, I don't want to say never, but like, they rarely get injured, because we always have, smart protocols. If you're someone who's constantly getting injured, or have a friend doing it, you'll clearly be able to recognize that their intensity and how they goes is probably too much, too soon, all the time. And the body can only handle it so much. All right. Another problem that we see is lack of strength training when it comes to HYROX, right? Yes, we know half the event is strength, right? And for a lot of times, people got to remind themselves, half of the event is strength based. By nature, yes, the whole event is aerobic because the heart rate's up. But it's like, people also go, I got to just be faster at running, got that conditioning. They put that as such a priority that sometimes people think that strength training, and like I said, doing specific strength training, will detract from their running. Now, we don't need to turn you into a powerlifter. We definitely don't need to turn you into a bodybuilder, but we need to keep you strong, right? Not only to handle the stations and to do all the strength work required, but we're talking to keep you injury free. We're talking to keep range of motion in all your joints. We're talking to keep mobility there. We want not only the range of motion, that mobility, but we want the body to be able to mechanically work well. We want it to be able to move and have strength in that full range. So strength training is such an important aspect of any endurance athlete. The top endurance athletes now are really, and you start seeing more, are going, wow, strength training is an absolute must. Now, when it comes to your strength program, and this is what, I guide people through, it's like, I don't need you to max out and do 1 rep maxes, but we need you just to load appropriately, right? So you're still doing strength, right? So like, even for myself, like example, when it comes to like my back squats, when I used to do like the CrossFit stuff, and strength was such an important part, like lifting heavy, would be pushing 150 kilos plus, on the back squat, needed, absolute standard. But for HYROX, I don't need to go 150 plus. I need to do like 100 kilo squats, but really, really well, really great quality, for 8 to 10 reps. So again, reducing that strength volume, or that, that sort of, that maximal number, reducing it, but doing really good quality, is still going to be really great strength training. So we just have to understand there's strength training, again, for strength, maximum strength, and then there's strength training for athletic ability and for maintenance, and, just for great function and activation. So that's, it's that kind of mindset we need to, adopt more when it comes to strength training. So it's not a takeaway. It's not going to take away from your running or your endurance. It's going to add to it. It's going to be essential, especially if you're doing lots of Ks of running, right? if you're putting a lot of load on certain muscles, like the gym and strength training is like literally where you keep, it's like, the workshop. It's you keep everything working well, so you can continue to clock up all those Ks on the legs. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, another problem here is people underestimate how much time they need to train properly. I sort of mentioned it before that 12 weeks is kind of like, kind of like a minimum, I would say, time frame to really, get ready for HYROX. 6 months out, it's even better. If you put 9 months to it, even better again. But it's like, 8 weeks is not long enough. 4 weeks is not long enough to properly train for it, to properly create some adaptation, to get, some endurance, to build the right strength, and do it without burning out. Right. So a lot of people, and HYROX is one of those events where you get excited and you really want to like jump on the bandwagon. But if you don't have enough time for it, you just got to, what I would say here, it's not like, well, you can't do anything if you're running out of time, but you just got to then change your expectation. I wouldn't go, oh, I've only got 6 weeks, so I'm going to then just, again, burn myself out, overload, and go against all these principles. I would go, okay, in 6 weeks, there's only so much improvement I can make. Still going to do my best, but what this will allow me to do is allow me to make, great progress for these next 6 weeks. And then after that, I can continue and get ready for the next one. So I think just, understanding, like getting a better understanding of the time required. A great example here is we have HYROX Brisbane coming up here in Australia. So we're 7.5 weeks out, to give you an example. And we're also basically 1 week into the new year. So a lot of people have just had their Christmas, had their New Year's, and they're like, cool, now I'm going to focus on HYROX Brisbane. I had this conversation just before. It's 7.5 weeks. People are like, I thought it was 12 weeks away. So, there's already 4.5 weeks in people's minds that they thought they had that they don't, because it's at the start of March, not the end of March. It's a big difference. So again, it's like, if you're sort of in this sort of bracket, it's like, cool, I got 7.5 weeks. This doesn't mean now do something that goes against, these principles. It's like, all right, I can just do my best in this time and time frame. Or really, the training should have been, and a lot of people I train have just trained all through Christmas and New Year's, right? They've enjoyed themselves, but they've kept training, and sometimes that's definitely what's required to stay in line with appropriate timeframes. All right, last one here as far as the problem goes, lack of mental toughness. Like training for HYROX, any kind of training really, any kind of challenge in life requires definitely mental resilience. You need mental toughness. And HYROX will put you in a position at some point where you are going to be challenged and you have to break through. You're either going to go backwards or you're going to go forwards. And that's one thing that is overlooked is, people think, oh, when it gets hard, like, that's when the training starts, right? So you physically train, but you got to mentally train. And it's that mental toughness and resilience that then is going to tell the body to keep going, to keep pushing, to keep showing up to the gym when you don't want to. When your legs are saying, I want to slow down and I don't want to run at this pace, that mental toughness is just like any other muscle. It's got to be trained, right? So you got to learn to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Like that is such a key thing. And just a problem that I see with a lot of people is that they're just not, they're not exposed to it enough, right? And sometimes when it can happen in this HYROX training is they think something's wrong, or a bit of fear, a bit of doubt comes in and they can go backwards. That could be resulting in pulling out of the event. That could result in, just listening to their body and sleeping in instead of doing their training. Now they're not following their training. They're not being consistent anymore. And now that snowball, that effect is a knock on. And all it is they had to make a decision when things got a little bit hard, things got a little bit tough. Do I just keep following the course of action? Do I keep following the plan, even though it's a little bit hard, even though I'm a bit uncomfortable? Or do I go to comfort and do I sleep in? Or do I, make an excuse? Or do I, pull out of the event now because, this is too much? See, this is life. This is not just the event. This is life. And how you handle this event could probably be how you handle a lot of other things in your life too. So that's a great thing about what HYROX training will do. It's not just going to get you ready for HYROX. It's going to get you ready to take on life and challenges and business and relationships and all that as well. So that's why, this style of training in HYROX, like I love, because it does go beyond the event. All right, quick little drink there. All right, I've spoken all about the problems. This is not just a problem episode. What we're going to go into now is we're going to look at solutions. What can we do about all this? What do we do when we work with people? And this is advice that you can take from here, and you're going to be able to make some great changes to your training, your regime, how you look at things that are going to make a huge impact. Okay, so the first thing that I would look at doing, okay, is I would sit down and I would write out a plan. Now, yes, of course, Damien, write a plan, but no, you got to sit down, right? You got to actually plan to do the plan, right? Because there's a difference of thinking it or, coming up with it while you're on a walk or while you're running. But if you sit down with your notepad, pen and paper, right, and go, cool, what is my plan? Put all your thoughts and attention into it. It sounds so simple. Again, it's simple, right? But done well, it's going to set up everything, right? Think about it. The next 12 weeks, the next 24 weeks of your training comes down to this plan. So sit down, give it the appropriate time it needs, block out half an hour, and come up with a plan. Identify your strengths and weaknesses. Break down the things that you need to work more on. Break down how it's going to fit into your week, right? These are all the things that need to go into your plan. And if you sit down and write out a plan, but there is this thing needs, everything to be perfect in the week and the stars align the right way in order to execute. Like mentioned, we're overcomplicating it, right? The chances and the likelihood of you completing that and sticking to it are going to be very, very slim. So I like to call it, you want to create your no matter what schedule or your no matter what plan, where you create a plan, which is on the basic side. It's on the simple side. It's on the cool, no matter what, I should be able to get this in, right? So no matter what is work gets a bit busy. Friend's birthday party comes on. Something else goes on, no matter what, I'm going to be able to reschedule this day or do this. So, doing 3 days of training on a no matter what schedule and doing that consistently will do better than trying to squeeze in 5 sessions, but then not getting all 5 in, only getting 2 in, or 5 in 1 week and then 3. Being inconsistent isn't going to see as good of results. So sit down, write out your plan. All right, second point here is you want to keep the structure simple, right? So we spoke about, not being great at anything. So when I look to write up a plan, I got to look, so by nature, HYROX, and this is how I just want you to really simply look at it. There's literally 3 points of the pyramid. Imagine a pyramid. So at the bottom, you have the base, the foundation. Strength training is on one side and endurance is on the other side. Without these two components, you have no slab, you have no foundation. Your ability to do HYROX is going to be so limited. So if you're only strong, well, then you're going to be limited by your endurance. If you only got endurance, you're going to be limited by your strength. So when we look at the simple structure, you got to start with my strength training and my endurance training, right? Then the peak of that pyramid, the top point, how we then can work up to this bit is your HYROX training, your hybrid training. That is the intensity. So again, the wider that base is, the stronger you are, the more endurance you have, the more capacity you have, then the higher ability to exert and express HYROX you're going to have, right? So I would look at example, just making sure to start off is where is my strength training? Where is my specific endurance training? And then where is my specific HYROX type training? That could be your 3 sessions, right? Someone a little bit more advanced could do 2 strength sessions, 2 endurance sessions, and 1 HYROX session. Or, again, depending on the individual, and this is where everyone's individual, that might be 2 specific strength sessions, 2 specific run sessions, 2 specific HYROX sessions, example. But if you are someone who is just I am doing strength and HYROX, running and HYROX, again, a big conditioning session. It's if you're doing too much, this is the idea again, you're not getting great at anything because you're putting it all too much into the same session, right? And this is one thing, I've studied a lot of programs. I've done this for a lot of time. I've been coached 17 years now. I've seen this all before, but especially with HYROX programs, I love, checking out other sort of programs and what people are doing. And there's a lot of fantastic programs out there as well. But I also do see people, some of them I'm just whoa, why? There's just so much going on. And again, even for me to try to do these sessions, I'm it's not sustainable because the sessions are way too long. Even I don't have some days I don't want to be in the gym for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I'm like, how can I do strength properly? And how can I express high intensity properly when I'm doing it all the time in the same session? It's just, you know, there are times for that, but not all the time. So simple works really well. And that's something that, you know, we do in all of our training programs is, you know, understanding these three areas. So I'll leave it there. Next point. Okay. Focus on each session for maximum improvement. So going back to, so you've put your structure there, you've gone, okay, run HYROX thing. And just understand that now we want to be measuring what we're doing in those sessions, right? So the actual session itself too, we need to make sure that it's quite simple by nature, right? Well, simple enough. Again, don't overcomplicate, put 10 different exercises into one session. Or if you're doing like a running session with some intervals, like I love just like doing a good old like 800 meters, 2-minute rest by 10 rounds, like something so simple like that. And the great thing about that too is it's very measurable. And this is the key point here. When we're trying to make maximum improvement in an area, it has to be measurable, right? And the best way to be measurable is for things to be repeatable. So repeatable can be in the session. So we call like intra-sessions. So like we just sort of said with the runs, you can do 800 meters on 2-minute rest, right? Very measured by 10 rounds. Now, if you record all that data, you can do that the next week, right? And you can just go, okay, there's my data. Now I know how to accurately improve that. Or if I run quicker, I can compare the two. It's very easy. Now, this is one key word that I progress slightly. Say we don't all the time, you know, run 30 seconds. Repeatability. I'm going to say, you know, faster. We just want to run a little bit faster. So it's really exciting when you see that repeatability, like I spoke about naturally. But another thing controls the session, right? So is if you're doing, whether it's a HYROX session, you know, the variables are going to be run session, a strength training session, is to actually go back and repeat workouts. So in some of our training programs, example, we have a 4-week phase where over the 4 weeks, this one particular HYROX session example changes. So every week it's different. But then on the 5th week, right, we repeat the workouts and we go through that same thing because that allows us to improve performance, to measure the two performances, to see that improvement. But it also, we call it like skill acquisition, because if you never repeat a workout, then you never sort of get those improvements in the skill side of things. And that's what's so good about HYROX is as well. On a side note, if you look at the nature of HYROX, let's say compared to like CrossFit, is CrossFit's totally variable all the time. So yes, you do a lot of movements repeated, but HYROX, it's the one event, the one thing. So the fact that you just do things over and over and over again, that's why we get so good and we get so much improvements in fitness, because we like to get fitter is not always a physical adaptation. A skill adaptation as well will also see improved performance. So imagine like running just faster or running with better technique, right? One takes just more energy, pure power. One takes efficiency. But you could actually go faster with running. So think of that with your wall balls, think of that with your sled pull, think about that with everything. So that's why repeating things is so important. Hence why, going back to the idea, if you're doing too much all the time, overcomplicating it, you're going to get okay at stuff. You're never going to get great at things, right? Huge point there. Alrighty. So thinking with the end in mind. Now this point, so again, thinking with the end in mind comes back to the idea or the problem of going too fast too soon, right? So if we're thinking about that idea too fast too soon, is because people are thinking right now. They're thinking short term and they're just going, how can I just make the most progress now, right? But if you're like, hey, I've got a plan, I've got a structure, and this thing is 12 weeks or this thing is 24 weeks, shout out to Bernie, by the way. He's on a day, you know, like 4 of 180. So he's thinking long term. So with that end in mind, then you then can comfortably go, I don't need to overexert right now because I've got a plan, I've got a goal. I'm thinking with the end in mind, and the challenge is going to be getting all the way there. So if I'm going flat out balls to the wall right now, like, you know, am I going to achieve my end goal, right? So again, that's why if you're failing to do that planning at the start, that's why it's so crucial to make sure we absolutely get that one right. Okay. Find repeatability in your training. I've already covered that. I got it here on my notes, so I don't need to cover that anymore. I think I've done that heaps. incorporating strength training. Okay, so we spoke about the problem, people not doing enough strength training. So this HYROX space, right, it really attracts, a couple of different people. You either come from a strength natured background, so you could be a bodybuilder, you could be a powerlifter, that's now doing a bit of running. And it's so awesome because I've got a few friends in the bodybuilding space who I thought would never run to save their life, have signed up and done HYROX. So it's freaking awesome to see that this event bringing all these people together. But your CrossFitters, your people that love lifting weights, right? Is their strength training is like, it's a no-brainer. And they do so much of it. Now, when it comes to the second type of person, the runner, the endurance athlete, the cardio bunny, like all these people, they really, I think they like strength training. And a lot of these type of people, the strength training I typically see them doing, it's more of like a high intensity circuit, your F45, your body fit trainings, Orange Theory, these type of things. They do some strength training, but as they start doing more HYROX-specific training, I do see a lot of the times these people, they put strength training, they just put it onto the back burner and they just only do it in their HYROX sessions. Now, again, these people also are the ones that are also starting to do a lot of volume in training. Same with the strength training people. They're starting to do more training, volume, more kilometers. But strength training is absolutely essential. And if you are that type of person, that runner who, doesn't prioritize running because you're like, oh, my leg's sore and I got a bit of soreness from the session and I don't want it to affect my running. That's just kind of like the initial, that's the break-in phase, right? You got to get your legs used to it. It's an absolute essential for HYROX, and the ability to do strength training, recover and run is kind of like what HYROX is about. So you got to get that, that toughness in the legs, right? That conditioning. But also like the amount of running injuries, like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's not a HYROX thing. It's a running thing. It's just a running thing. Like running is like the number one sport in the world. The most participants do it because it's most accessible. And it's also the sport that's got the most injuries out of anything. Let's talk about it. Shin splints, calf strains, plantar fasciitis, like, knee pain, patellar tendonitis, glute pain, like hip instability, lower back pain, you name it. It's like, it goes on and on and on because of the nature of the impact. Now, yes, mechanically, absolutely, people need to learn how to run with better technique. But a huge part of it as well comes down to their muscles are not strong enough, because the whole point of the skeletal system, muscular structure, is to create support and stability, right? And as we fatigue, if the muscle's not conditioned or strong enough, then its ability to create that stability weakens, right? And then this is where then it's going to start to have effects on the mechanics, overload, injury present. So again, strength training, you're not a bodybuilder, don't need to be a bodybuilder. You need to just be doing strength training. And if anyone's into the ultra space, so any ultra runners or ultra triathletes or any of these like, long, ultra guys that do stuff for days at a time, they're not super skinny, sort of like typical like marathon runners. They're generally, bulked up. They got a bit of muscle on them, because that is such an imperative thing for especially people doing the ultra stuff, right? Not all of them, but I know a lot of people. It's a very common trait of these people is to actually have a bit of muscle on them as well. Which is really, really important. Then it's literally, if anyone follows Ross Edgley, he's quite famous for doing some really long endurance stuff. He's shredded, very muscular, athletic guy. And that's why nutrition, as long as you're feeding the body, you can keep muscle and you can be have super endurance and all those sorts of things. So incorporating strength training is absolutely imperative and a must to do. So again, really big point there to make sure that you're just not skipping it, right? Give yourself enough time to train. I've spoke about this and dropped it all throughout, but like you gotta think, okay, now what is enough time to train? Well, you gotta go back to your goals as well, right? What are your expectations? Are you expecting to complete the race and do it, just to do your best, experience HYROX, have fun, give it a good crack? 12 weeks, awesome, right? Get on a good 12-week sort of program or a 12-week structure, right? And you're going to get in great shape. If you're someone who's like, I've never done this ever before in my life, I've never ran, I can only run like 3 kilometers at the moment, strength training is still quite new to me, but I want to get like in great shape and I want to go under, a reasonable time, and I've only got 12 weeks to train, right? This is so short, and this is probably not ideal because, again, the pyramid, right? Strength and endurance. You've got to build these foundations. And these foundations, and that's why I talk about 6 months out is awesome, because in 12 weeks, we can make good progress in a couple areas, right? Not 3 areas is a lot. So 6 months out, we have these specific programs. Just to give you insight into how we structure things, is in this 6 month out, we focus on these areas, strength and endurance, and we're building and compounding that base, right? Then in the 12 weeks out, we call it more of HYROX prep as we lean towards the top of the pyramid. So I would say if you're quite new to this space, putting a good 6 month plan is going to be a way that it's sustainable. You can make steady progress. You're going to feel good about the progress. You're not going to get injured. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to get in great shape. You're going to make those adaptations. It's a brilliant time frame. 12 weeks out, okay, you're limited. I think you're going to be limited with what you can achieve. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean you're not going to achieve great things. Everyone's so different, but again, you just gotta, it would be something to reassess, right? It's always expectations. I think nothing is right or wrong. It's just if you only have X amount of time and you only can commit X amount of action, but you're expecting, Y, a different result, like if those don't match up, then that's kind of how you set yourself up to fail. And I don't believe anybody, hence why we do these podcasts and we do these things, is I don't want people to set themselves up to fail. I want you to win. All right. Last point here, right? This is one I love the most, being prepared to be mentally challenged. Now, if you're someone who's still listening to this podcast, by the way, you fall into this bracket of you are someone who's got like that ability to focus, that wants to learn, that wants to grow, and you're already on your way to achieving this one here, the mental challenge, right? So building mental challenge, how do we do this? I think, from what I do, I would say my ability to push through mental challenges, not in my life, but in training especially, has come from my desire to want to get better in that area, right? So you just got to have that desire. I read a lot of books on, personal development, your David Goggins, people who can just share their stories and insights into the challenges, and so you can normalize it, right? So like me saying it to you, like HYROX is going to get hard. The training is going to get hard at one point. I'm trying to normalize that feeling for you so you can anticipate it, not so you can react to it. Because if we are unaware that it's a normal thing, then we're like, whoa, what's going on here? This isn't meant to happen. But if we normalize it and we talk about it, then when it happens, because it will happen, then you can go, that's okay. It's like, in HYROX especially, like I call it your ability just to, be in the hurt zone for, 60 minutes to 90 minutes on average, right? Is because sometimes it's just a response when we start to feel a bit of pain or the legs start to burn, or, it's like some people, if they're not used to it, then it's like problem and I got to slow down. But when you can start to realize that, wait, this is normal and this feeling's okay and I'm not actually in danger, then you can learn to like just, sit in it a bit longer. You can learn on, not to, again, you need to react so drastically. And this is why the top athletes can work at such a high intensity for so long, is because they're still pushing hard. They're still uncomfortable, but they're just realizing it's a normal feeling and they're not going to die. They're just hurting a little bit, and that's okay. So you need that in the event, you need that in training. And, so again, you got to put in that input, right? Listening to podcasts like this, reading books about, mental toughness, reading, your Kobe Bryant stories, your Michael Jordans. I've done a lot of that stuff. Even like, start with why, Simon Sinek, always having these inspirations around you to understand your goals. Because if you're connected to your goals and what you want to achieve, that is also going to be a thing that will pull you towards your goals, right? You don't want to push your way to your goals, right? You don't want to be forced there. You want to be inspired and you want to connect with your whys, your reason for doing it. So, Stephen Bartlett, so Diary of CEO, he sort of talks about the motivation formula. And it's like, it's always when, the perceived value is greater than the perceived loss, is when you're motivated or when you're naturally going to pull towards something. But if you see like HYROX training, but the loss, getting up early, doing the sessions, having to sign up to the gym and all this kind of stuff is, more pain than the value, then you're not going to do it, right? So that's why you got to start to, you got to start to be every day, instead of driving to work and just listening to the radio, put on, an audio book, things like this. Get your mind ready. And this is the mental preparation, because the mind is a muscle, just like the biceps, right? If you want bigger biceps, you got to do the reps. If you want a stronger mindset, you got to do the mental reps every single day. Okay. So really, really huge. That's why we added in here, because literally if the mind doesn't go along with the body, right, the mind will be the limitation. But once we can open up the mind to really think unlimited, then your potential is unlimited. And it's so cool. So cool. All right, everybody, what an episode. I'm going to wrap it up here. So I've spoke a lot about training, structure, all these things. Now, here at Hybrid Heroes, we can help you if you want some help. So we can help you by just listening to this podcast. Hopefully you've gained a lot of information, knowledge that you can take with you. But if you're looking for training support, right, we actually have a training app, our Hybrid Heroes training app, where we have programs to help you with HYROX, running, technique, HYROX mastery, everything that you could think of. We have in this app to give you the structure, to give you to know how the workouts, to simply just follow it and you will get a result. Our programs also are tailored for whether you're beginner, intermediate, and advanced, so it suits your needs. Plus, I'm in there as well, so you get coaching with me. And this is something that I pride myself on so much, is we understand that if we just give you a program, here you go, you can achieve it, but by coupling up with a coach that you have direct access to answer questions, give you support, like now you're truly unstoppable, because we want to give you the support and make it as tailored as we can for you, and just delivering in a way. So wherever you're in the world, you can do that. We have a link here in the description to give you a 7-day free trial on us. Right, so you can get in it, you can get started. It's as simple as that. If not, we also have a free online community that you can join as well. If you just want more tips, insights, and connect with a global community, we have over 1,000 people in there as well. So I'll have that link there below. But other than that, guys, I just want to see you win. I want to see you keep training hard, training smart, right? And I can't wait to see you hopefully at a HYROX event. But if not, please let me know how you go. I always love to hear the stories from everyone doing HYROX. And at any time, if you've got questions as well, you can always reach out to me. So guys, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.